It'll add a punch plate vibrating screen on the end.
Okay.
You know, it'll allow you to add more blow boxes on the end of that in the future.
Yeah. Another aspect is your prospecting. You need better ground, because you're not running a ton of material.
The Arizona desert, a wasteland of blistering heat and endless dust, where even the wind feels like fire. The horizon ripples with heat waves, and every breath tastes like sand. Out here, survival isn't guaranteed. And fortune, that's a gamble only the desperate dare to take. Two young miners stand against it all. Nick and Danny, barely in their 20s, faces sunburned, lips cracked, their eyes hollow from sleepless nights and endless digging. Their hands, blistered and raw, grip tools they can barely afford to replace. Every day feels like a fight against the earth itself, and the earth is winning. Their dream is simple: strike gold. But their mine is bleeding money. Fuel costs are eating every dollar they make. Broken machinery, dry wells, and relentless debt stalk their every move. They've gambled everything: their savings, their future, even their sanity. Now, standing on the brink of ruin, they have one last shot. A wild plan, untested, dangerous. A plan that could turn dust into millions or bury them forever. Could this desperate gamble save their dream or destroy it completely? Stay with us, and if you want more untold stories of gold, grit, and survival, make sure you subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. Long before highways carved through the American Southwest, the Arizona desert was a place whispered about in saloons and around crackling campfires. A land of blistering sun, endless dust, and rumors of gold hidden deep beneath unforgiving rock. In the late 1800s, prospectors came here in droves, men with calloused hands and hollow eyes, chasing stories of riches waiting just below the surface. They dug blind, swinging picks in the scorching heat, praying for a glint of yellow in their pans. Most never found it. The desert swallowed their hopes, their fortunes, and often their lives. Decades passed. The boomtowns rotted. Saloons turned to splinters, and mine shafts collapsed under shifting sands. But the whispers never stopped. Somewhere out here, gold still waited. And for those desperate enough to try, the dream lived on. Now, generations later, two young miners stand where legends were born. Nick and Danny, barely in their 20s, faces burned by the same unrelenting sun. Blisters cover their hands, sweat runs into their eyes. Each strike of the shovel echoes through empty canyons, the sound swallowed by silence. Their daily haul: 0.2 grams, $12, not nearly enough to cover the roaring generator that guzzles fuel faster than they can pay for it. Every sunrise means another loss. Every sunset, another debate about whether to quit. But neither speaks the word aloud, because in mining, one strike can change everything. And as their hope flickers in the desert wind, a reckless idea takes shape. An untested plan that could save them, or bury them alongside the forgotten miners of the past. The desert had nearly broken them. Nick and Danny stood on the edge of quitting. Their equipment failing, their fuel gone, their dreams collapsing like the shafts of forgotten mines before them. Days of digging yielded barely $12 worth of gold, while their generator devoured twice that amount in fuel every sunrise. Hope, like water in the desert, was running dry. And then, headlights appeared on the horizon. A battered pickup truck tore through the shimmering heat, kicking up a plume of dust that curled against the blood-red sky. Two men stepped out, veterans of gold mining, their faces weathered, their movements confident. Freddy Juan, Ibarra, names that carried weight in mining circles. known for pulling off miracles in places where others had failed. Freddy surveyed the claim with a silence that cut deeper than words. Rusting machinery sagged under years of neglect. Hoses, buckets, and patched-up tools littered the dry ground, evidence of two young men clawing against impossible odds. Finally, he spoke, voice gravelly and blunt. Outdated, inefficient. You're working twice as hard for half the gold. Danny's fists clenched. We already know that. Juan knelt beside the generator, his hand tracing its dented metal frame. The machine sputtered, coughing black smoke into the already blistering air. You're burning more fuel than you're pulling in gold, he muttered. Every hour this runs, you're bleeding money. Nick exhaled sharply. We can't afford better. We can't afford anything. Freddy turned toward them, eyes sharp, calculating. Then stop burning fuel. Silence fell over the camp. Danny frowned. That's supposed to mean? Freddy's lips curled into a faint smile. Power the whole plant. With the sun. Solar power. A radical idea, untested in conditions this brutal. But in this desert, where dreams either strike or shatter, it might be their last chance. Freddy didn't waste time. The moment the words left his mouth, Nick and Danny exchanged a stunned look, half disbelief, half desperate hope. Solar, Nick finally muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. You want us to run a gold mine? On sunlight? Freddy nodded. Panels, batteries, inverter. The whole system on a trailer. Mobile, clean, free. Danny shook his head. You think we can just flip a switch and forget about fuel? No, Freddy said plainly. I think you can build something no one's ever done out here, and if it works, you'll run for free. Juan was already sketching in the dirt, dragging a stick across dry ground. Panels on top, he muttered. Battery bank here. Hitch it to the truck so you can chase the sun. That's your power. The idea hit like a lightning strike. A mobile solar trailer. Sunlight turned into raw energy, feeding their trommel day and night without a single drop of diesel. No roaring engine, no choking smoke. Just silence and efficiency in the middle of nowhere. But the trommel, their ancient, groaning, gold-washing drum, wouldn't survive the upgrade without work. We'll rip out the old motor, Freddy explained, kneeling beside the rusted frame. Drop in a new one, lighter, faster. More revolutions per minute means more dirt washed. More dirt, Danny whispered, following the thought. More gold. 4 times more, Freddy confirmed. If you can process 4 times the pay dirt with zero fuel cost, you're not just surviving, you're turning a profit. Nick stared at the plan scratched in the sand. 4 times more dirt, no fuel bill. The math was irresistible, but so was the risk. This has never been done before, Nick said quietly. Not here. Not in this heat. Not on this kind of scale. Freddy's tone was calm, almost challenging. Every breakthrough starts as something that's never been done. Silence hung heavy. Only the wind whistled through the barren claim, carrying dust that burned their eyes and stung their lips. Danny finally broke it. What if it fails? Freddy didn't flinch. Then you're done. The words hit like a punch. The dream, the mine, the months of backbreaking labor, gone in a single gamble. But what choice did they have? Quitting meant walking away empty-handed. Staying meant betting everything on sunlight. Nick closed his eyes, fists tightening. The desert was quiet, waiting. Finally, he opened them. All right, we build it. 3 days. That's all Freddy gave them. 3 days to turn a crazy idea into a working solar trailer or walk away from the mine for good. The clock started the moment the sun rose over the Arizona desert. Heat shimmered off the sand, bending the horizon. By noon, the temperature climbed past 110 degrees, the wind cutting sideways across the claim like a sandblaster. Day 1. The frame. Juan laid out steel beams, scavenged from old equipment, sparks flying as his welder screamed against the wind. Every gust carried grit that stung eyes and burned skin. Nick held the frame steady, boots planted in shifting dust. "Feels like welding in a hurricane," Juan shouted over the howl. "Panels are gonna be worse." Freddy paced nearby, arms crossed, scanning the horizon. "Clock's ticking, boys. That sun isn't waiting for you." Day 2. The panels. The solar panels arrived at dawn. Sleek black glass that shimmered like mirrors against the endless beige. Light, fragile, and dangerously aerodynamic. Danny stared at them nervously. "They look like sails." "Correction," Freddy muttered, tightening a ratchet. "They're giant kites." Mounting them was a nightmare. Every time the wind picked up, the panels threatened to tear free, dragging ropes and men across the sand. Nick and Danny wrestled with straps as gusts ripped at their gloves, panels twisting violently like wings trying to take flight. Hours blurred into exhaustion. Sunburn blistered their necks, sweat soaked through shirts, tools overheated in the sun, too hot to hold bare-handed. Day 3, the batteries and wiring. With the frame welded and panels mounted, the final task was wiring the heart of the system, the battery bank. Freddy crouched over the cables, barking instructions. "Negative to bus bar. Keep it clean. No shorts, or you'll fry the whole setup." Danny wiped sweat from his face, hands trembling as he tightened the final bolt. "Moment of truth, huh?" Freddy gave a short nod. Moment of truth. As the last connection clicked into place, the wind fell silent. For a heartbeat, the desert held its breath. The reveal. The trailer stood gleaming in the sun, a futuristic streak of black and silver against endless gold dust. 4 massive panels tilted toward the sky, humming faintly as they soaked in raw power. It looked alien, out of place, like something dropped here from the future. Nick stepped back, awe flickering across his sunburned face. "That actually looks incredible." Danny grinned weakly. "Hope it works half as good as it looks." Freddy's expression stayed hard. "Hope isn't gonna cut it. Let's see if this thing can save your mine." The sun blazed high overhead. The new solar trailer gleamed like a beacon in the endless expanse of dust and rock. 4 black panels tilted toward the sky, drinking in raw energy. This was it. 3 days of backbreaking labor, endless welding, wrestling panels in screaming wind, all leading to this moment. Freddy crouched at the junction box, tightening the last connection. Juan stood ready at the trommel, one hand on the switch. Nick and Danny hovered behind them, sweat dripping into the dirt, hearts pounding. "All right," Freddy muttered. "Hook it up." Cables snaked from the trailer to the wash plant, black against the pale ground. No diesel, no roar of an engine, only silence, heavy and unnerving, as sunlight became their only lifeline. Juan gave the signal. Danny's hand trembled as he flipped the breaker. For a moment, nothing. The desert was silent. The wind held still. Nick's stomach sank. Did it fail? Nick's stomach sank. Did it fail? Then, a low hum, faint at first, almost inaudible, but growing stronger, louder. A vibration rippled through the trommel's frame. The massive drum shuddered and began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. "Look at that," Freddy breathed. The trommel roared to life, not with the choking growl of diesel, but with a clean, electric whir. Dirt tumbled through the drum in a steady cascade. Buckets dumped pay gravel faster than ever before, water jets blasting sediment free as gold-bearing material streamed down the sluice. No fuel, no smoke, just sunlight, pure and relentless. Danny's eyes went wide. It's quiet. Nick grinned, almost in disbelief. And it's fast. Twice as fast. 4 times, Freddy corrected, watching dirt flow like water. Exactly what I promised. Minutes turned to hours. The sun powered everything flawlessly. No stalling, no breakdowns, just steady, efficient production, something unheard of in the desert's brutal conditions. By sunset, the sluice box glittered with finds, more gold in one shift than Nick and Danny had pulled in an entire week. For the first time in months, hope returned to the claim. Nick stared at the shimmering flakes, unable to hide his smile. We might actually make it. Danny's voice cracked, equal parts joy and exhaustion. We're not done yet, but we're not dead either. Freddy crossed his arms, a rare grin breaking through. Told you, boys, sunlight's the richest fuel there is. But even as they celebrated, the desert remained indifferent. The wind whispered through empty canyons, carrying a silent reminder. One good day doesn't guarantee survival. Out here, fortunes rise and vanish just as fast. Night fell quietly over the Arizona desert. The oppressive heat finally gave way to a cool wind that swept across the claim, carrying the smell of wet dirt and diesel. Though tonight, for the first time, there was no diesel running, no roar of engines, no fuel to burn, only silence and anticipation. Nick and Danny crouched over the cleanup sluice, headlamps cutting sharp beams through the darkness. Freddy stood behind them, arms crossed, watching closely. Juan sorted tools nearby, his eyes flicking toward the glinting riffles as water ran clear over the matting. Danny's hands trembled as he scraped the concentrates into a pan. Months of struggle, days of frantic work, and a gamble on untested technology. All of it came down to this. Nick leaned in. Moment of truth. The first swirl of the pan sent flecks of black sand drifting away, and then, like stars in the night sky, tiny flashes of yellow appeared. Gold, more than they'd ever seen in one cleanup. Keep washing, Freddy said calmly, though even he couldn't hide the hint of a smile tugging at his mouth. Minute by minute, the pan revealed its treasure. Delicate flakes and fine specks, gathering in the corner like a promise fulfilled. Danny's breath caught as he poured it onto the scale. 0.7 grams, almost 4 times their previous daily haul. Danny stared at the number, disbelief flooding his face. 4 times in one day. And not a drop of fuel burned, Juan added, grinning as he wiped dust from his hands. That's pure profit. For a moment, nobody spoke. The weight of it settled in. The months of despair, the endless setbacks, the heat, the wind, the nights spent wondering if they'd made the worst mistake of their lives. All of it, worth it. Nick finally broke the silence, voice thick with emotion. We might actually make it. Danny laughed, a raw, exhausted laugh that turned into something close to tears. Solar. Who would have thought? Freddy rested a hand on Nick's shoulder. Sometimes the craziest ideas are the only ones that work. The trailer stood nearby, panels tilted toward the last fading light of sunset. In the glow of dusk, it looked almost unreal. Sleek, silent, futuristic, a lifeline in a land that had swallowed so many dreams before. For the first time in months, Nick and Danny weren't just surviving, they were winning. But in the desert, victories are fragile. The wind still whispered through the canyons, carrying an unspoken truth. Every gold streak has an end, and tomorrow the fight would begin again. The celebration faded into quiet reflection as the last of the gold was weighed and tucked away. For Nick and Danny, this day felt like salvation. But for Freddy and Juan, it stirred memories of battles far harder than mining. When the desert wind died down, Freddy sat on the trailer hitch, staring at the fading stars overhead. His face, worn, scarred by sun and loss, carried a heaviness neither of the young miners understood. Until now. Nick hesitated, then asked softly, "You ever think about walking away from all this?" Freddy's jaw tightened. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly, "I buried my daughter when she was 17. The words hung in the night air, heavier than any gold they'd dug. "After that, I couldn't see straight," Freddy continued, voice low. "Mining wasn't about money anymore. It was about keeping my hands busy, so I wouldn't fall apart." Nick looked down, unsure how to respond. Freddy's story wasn't about gold. It was about survival, the kind you can't measure on a scale. Nearby, Juan tightened a bolt on the solar trailer, his hands steady despite the tremor in his voice. "I lost my house to wildfire 3 years ago," he said, almost casually. "Everything I owned, photos, tools, gone in a night." He paused, tightening the last nut with a sharp twist. "Figured I could either give up or rebuild." Danny met Juan's eyes. "And you rebuilt?" Juan shrugged. "Still am." Silence followed, but it wasn't awkward. It was grounding. For Nick and Danny, hearing these stories shifted everything. The desert's hardships felt crushing, but here were two men who had survived far worse and still kept moving forward. Freddy finally broke the quiet. "You think mining's about gold?" He shook his head. "Gold's just the excuse. Mining's about hope, about refusing to quit when everything tells you to." Danny swallowed hard. "Hope's all we've got." "Then hold on to it," Freddy said, standing, his silhouette framed against the glow of the solar panels. "'Cause out here, hope is worth more than any ounce you'll ever dig." For Nick and Danny, the solar trailer was more than just a machine now. It was proof that even in the harshest deserts, with the worst odds, second chances were possible. The desert wouldn't get easier. The gold wouldn't come faster. But tonight, with newfound resolve and two unlikely mentors beside them, they finally believed they could make it. And in mining, belief is the first strike of every fortune. While Nick and Danny's solar-powered victory felt monumental in their small corner of the desert, the wider mining world told a very different story. Just 1,000 miles north, in the gold fields of the Yukon, Parker Schnabel was pulling in $15 million in a single season. Massive wash plants devoured mountains of pay dirt by the hour. Miles of conveyor belts fed relentless trommels the size of houses. For Parker, gold wasn't measured in grams. It was counted by the truckload. Further west, Tony Beats commanded fleets of floating dredges, mechanical leviathans that chewed through riverbeds day and night. His operations were legendary for their scale and audacity. Where most miners battled for ounces, Tony moved earth by the acre, staking fortunes on machinery few dared even dream of. Against giants like these, Nick and Danny's 0.7 grams seemed almost laughable. A single cleanup from Parker or Tony could eclipse their entire season's haul. But that's the unspoken truth of treasure hunting. Scale doesn't erase struggle. Whether you're mining with billion-dollar machines or a battered shovel, the gold never comes easy. Every miner, from rookies in Arizona to legends in the Yukon, faces the same unforgiving odds. Weather, breakdowns, debt, and doubt are universal. For every story of striking it rich, there are 10 more of heartbreak. Fortunes lost, dreams abandoned, camps left to rot in silence. Nick and Danny understood this now more than ever. Their solar breakthrough was a lifeline, yes, but it didn't promise riches. It promised another chance, another day to dig, another reason not to quit. And that, in its own way, was victory enough. Freddy Dodge knew it too. He'd worked alongside both Parker and Tony. He'd seen the highs of multi-million-dollar cleanups and the lows of entire seasons lost to floods or bad ground. The scale changed, but the heart of mining never did. People think it's about gold, Freddy muttered as he watched the last light fade from the Arizona sky. But it's about chasing something you may never catch, and having the guts to chase it anyway. The solar trailer hummed softly behind him, panels still soaking the dying rays. For Nick and Danny, this wasn't the end of their struggle. It was only the beginning. In the vast, brutal world of gold mining, legends were forged and forgotten every season. Tonight, under a desert sky littered with stars, two young miners dared to believe they might someday join them. In the end, the gold they pulled from the sluice box wasn't the only victory. The real treasure lay in the idea itself, in the grit to try something unproven, the teamwork forged under brutal conditions, and the second chance that sunlight gave two miners who were ready to quit. Nick and Danny's solar breakthrough didn't just save their season. It sparked a bigger question for the entire mining world. If solar power can fuel a struggling desert claim, is the age of diesel mining coming to an end? In an industry built on tradition, could innovation be the next gold rush? The desert won't give up its secrets easily, but as this story proves, the future of treasure hunting may belong to those bold enough to rewrite the rules. What do you think? Could solar mining change everything, or is diesel here to stay? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what rescue stories you want to see next. Because out here, every discovery isn't just about finding gold. It's about finding hope.